Okay, there's that mean old bat. Let's see if we... Oh, here he comes. Dodge. Okay. Let's show him what's up. Hey, if we hide behind this rock, he doesn't hurt us, but he does seem to be hurting himself. Oh, there he goes. He has finished himself off. Let's get out of here before he respawns. Okay, welcome back to LewyT Amusement Academy Part 20. Last time we made this little bat and he would attack us whenever we get close. He'd do his charging attack, deals damage. This time I want to make it so that if he misses us and hits the rock or some other obstacle, then he will hurt himself. I didn't have time to put it in the last episode, so here we go. Okay, let's start with the scripts. The first script that we need to change is the character script. This is the script that we've made a while back. We haven't made any changes to it recently, and there's quite a few changes we need to do. And that's mainly because the script was designed specifically for the player character. But I intended it to be for any character that has like health, any character that gets hurt will make, has health and makes noises and whatnot. So there is a few changes we need to make. The first one is we don't need the starter assets. I don't remember if that was ever used, but we are using system.link, and I'll show you what this does. I'm going to comment it out, and then Visual Studio will highlight with a red underline the part that is using it. And this first default is just a method you can call on any kind of array or list, and it just gets the first item in the list or a default if there is none. So that's what that does. We're using the LewyT Game Lab namespace because one of our other scripts, SimpleWander, uses it, and we are calling a method inside that script. I'll show you when we do that. We have a couple new properties. A respawn delay. This was previously just hard-coded in the character script, and I thought it would be good to have a property we can change because I want my enemy characters to respawn slower than the player character does, so we need to be able to modify that. And we also need a reference to the player character. If this is a player character, we need to be able to tell that it's the player versus some other character. So this is what we're doing on the wig method. We're setting the animator and just get that component. If the animator is null because there is not an animator on that character, the same object that has the character script, then it looks for components in the children of that script, and so it will find animator there if there is one. Audio source, this is where the character makes noises, and the player character that's if it is a player character, and if it's not, this line will return null, so this will be a null value, and we can then compare that later to tell whether or not it's a player character. So in our heal method, honestly, there's no changes here. These are just formatting changes. In our die method, we do have some changes. This here is just a formatting change, but if the controller, so we're checking to see if we have a character controller, and character controller is just what allows the characters to move, whether it's a player character or an enemy or a bunny. The only thing we're doing different is we are not using the third-person controller. We're just checking for the character controller because third person is a different script. If the controller is not null, we disable the controller on the die method. So when we die, we want our character, whether it's our personal character, our player character, or an enemy, or any other character, if it dies, it shouldn't be able to move anymore. So that's what this is doing. It's disabling the controller, the character controller script. And then we're getting an EnemyBrain property, the component for EnemyBrain, and it says, well, if there's an EnemyBrain, we're going to disable that. And the SimpleWander is the same way. If the character is dead, the SimpleWander should be disabled. And then this is where we're using that respawn delay. Instead of invoking respawn in 3 seconds, we're respawning based on that delay that we can customize per character. Okay, here's the respawn method. When we respawn, we're saying the animator needs to animate not dead anymore. So is dead is false. We're going to set the health to the max health. Is dead is false if there's a player character script, meaning it is the player character, then we're going to do the scene reload. This reloads the entire scene, so everything resets, not just the character itself. But if it's not the player character, we're going to do this other stuff, because each of these characters that die and respawn will need to do some other things besides, we're not going to reload the whole scene for everything that dies. So if it's a SimpleWander, then we enable the SimpleWander on respawn. We're going to use a SimpleWander.pickPosition. So whenever we respawn the character, we want it to respawn in not just the same position it died in, but respawning is just another place near its home base. So pick a position is the method on the SimpleWander script that finds a new position near the home base. And we'll actually make some changes to that method when we get to that script. So we're going to pick that position. We're calculating the distance from the home base. And then depending on what that distance is, we're going to increase the Y position. Now, the reason I did these two lines is because in my particular case, the home base for the bat is on a side of a hill. And so the further away the new position is, it could end up being inside the hill. And if that happens, the bat would end up spawning underneath the ground and then just fall down and never appear on the surface. So the further away we are from the home base, the higher it will spawn, but then gravity will bring it back down to the surface. So once I did that, I didn't have that problem anymore. And then we're just setting the position to that position that we've calculated. And then we're going to start the Wander routine for the SimpleWander script. This is all stuff that happens only if it's a SimpleWander component. If we have a character controller, we want to make sure the character controller is enabled. If we have an enemy brain, we want to enable that also. Okay, in the display health method, I don't think these are real changes. These are just formatting changes. Okay, that is the character script. Okay, our next script is the EnemyBrain script, and we are using LewyT.GameLab. And this warm-up turn time is not a change, it's just a comment. I removed the comment. You have to be careful with comments on your scripts because you might change something. So, for example, I changed the name of this variable from warm-up time to warm-up turn time because the main thing it's doing in that action is turning toward the enemy. So I didn't think that comment was relevant anymore. One time I heard someone say that comments are just lies waiting to happen. So they may be true when you write them, but if something changes, they become untrue. Line 15, we have a character controller, and this is just a reminder, this is what allows the characters to move. In the start method, it's just going to assign that to that object's character controller. In the onTriggerStay method, we're adding this one little check. If this script is not enabled, we're going to return. We're not going to do the stuff inside this method. If our enemy brain is disabled, it will not try to start this combat sequence. We have a new method on disable. So this is anytime the enemy brain is disabled, we're going to stop the combat sequence, stop coroutine. And then our combat sequence itself has changed a little bit. We've changed the routine warm-up turn routine. That's just a name change. We're only going to set Wander to enable true if the character controller is also enabled. Here's our warm-up turn routine. And instead of while timeout is greater than 0 only, we're also checking as long as the character controller is enabled, we will do this loop. So as soon as the character controller gets disabled, as for example, if the character dies, we're going to be done with this loop. And down here in the retreat routine, we do something similar with the while loop. We check to make sure that the character controller is enabled before we do anything else. We're changing the calculation for the direction that we're going to retreat in. We're actually doing the calculation here right as we are turning. So like if the character moves while the enemy is trying to retreat from it, it will actively retreat in the right direction even if you move away from it. And then the next change is we're doing character controller.move instead of getting the component. So what we were doing before, we were doing this get component inside the loop. So that means every frame we were running that method to detect the component. Whereas if we just detect it once at the beginning, this will run a little bit faster. And we just remove a debug line. That's everything for EnemyBrain. Okay, the next script I want to show you is the SimpleWander script. This is another script we've already had. It's got a few changes to make it compatible with our new paradigm. So we have our namespace, LewyT.GameLab. One change here is the home base variable is now a public variable instead of a serialized field. Public allows it to be accessed from another script outside of the script. We have a new method called pickAPosition. Now, pickAPosition is what we used to do inside the wander routine every time the character wants to pick a new place to wander to. However, now we've made it a method, and it's a public method because we're going to call it from outside of itself. And the character script is going, in particular, when it respawns, it calls this method. And it picks a new random position. We have our onDisable and onEnable. So whenever the SimpleWander script is disabled, it stops the wander routine. And when it's enabled, it starts it again. Now our wander routine method itself, the while loop uses enabled instead of just true. So it will automatically end when the script is disabled. And now, whenever we're picking a target position, instead of doing this, these two lines, we just run the method and it picks that position for us. In the update method, if we are enabled false, then we return. So that way we won't do all the stuff in the update method if the script is disabled. This is just a formatting change. And then this controller.move is checking that the controller is enabled before it tries to use it. Because if you try to do a controller.move and that controller script is disabled, it'll give an error. And then in the onTriggerStay method, we do a check for the controller. If it's not enabled, then we return and we don't do any of this stuff. And the main thing that affects really is this rotation. We don't want the character to be turning to look at us when it's dead. That's kind of creepy, but also it doesn't make sense. Okay, the last script change is the EnemyChargeAction. So we need to have a reference to the character script, and we want an attack direction defined here at the top level. We were doing it defining it at the time that we were setting it. By moving it up here, we allow it to be accessed in another method besides this one. The start method, instead of just setting the controller, we're also setting the character component that we will use later. And then in our perform charge coroutine, we're setting an if block basically to encapsulate the entire method only if this script is enabled and the controller is also enabled. Then we set the attack direction the same. Attack dir is the same, set the same way. We just aren't defining it here. Removed a comment and that extra if block. And then on controller collider hit, we're also checking that we're enabled. If we're not enabled, we return so that we don't do any of this stuff. I just changed the name of the character that's hit to hit character. This just makes it easier to understand. As long as that's not null, then we will try to do damage to that character. And then if we do damage the character, we're going to return. And that's important because if we get down here, that means we have not done damage to a character, but we still did hit something. So if we hit something but it wasn't a character, then it's like an obstacle. So we want to instead do the damage to this enemy itself. We're doing a calculation called dot, and that just takes the direction that the attacker is attacking in and the direction of the surface that it hits. And if those directions are close to being opposite each other, then that means it hit fairly straight on. And So this is, these comments kind of help make sense of it. A -1 would be a completely straight on hit, and a 0 would be like you barely brushed by something. So it'll, the number will always end up being somewhere between 0 and -1. If it's less than -0.8 all the way up to -1, then it considers it a damaging type of hit. So if it hits hard, it damages itself, and so we do the character.damage, the damage amount. So it's the same amount of damage it would have done to someone else, it does to itself. And then we set the is charging to false, and then we can return. Okay, that's everything for our enemy charge action. So that's all for the scripting, but now we need to do some stuff in the editor. So this bat is here, he's going to attack us, but we want him to be able to run into obstacles like this rock. So we want to be able to trick him into running into the rock. Now we can just stand by the rock and then try to watch when he's coming and dodge out of the way. But I'm not trying to be the best at dodging. What I want to do is just make this kind of easy so that we can get him to crash into the rock without too much effort on our part. So what I'm going to do, the simplest way in my mind, is to make this rock skinnier, so it's more like a vertical column, and we'll just hide behind it, and then he'll ram into it. So I'm going to unlink these scale X, Y, and Z, and then we're just going to maybe make it skinnier on the X and the Z. Okay, that's kind of good. Let me actually make it taller. So it's like this tall, skinny rock sticking up, and we can like hide behind it, and he will crash into it. And then we can, the reason it needs to be skinny at all, I mean, part of it is so that we can hide behind it and he can still tell that we're there, but also so that we can see him when he's coming, so we can kind of make sure that we're in the right spot. So that's something, if you're trying to follow along, you probably want to do something like that also. Okay, we also want our bat character to be modified. It has a few different things already on it. We already have SimpleWander and character controller. That's for his regular movement. And then the enemy brain kind of orchestrates the attack. And then the enemy charge action is our attack action. Sphere collider is for detecting enemies. But we also need a character script, just the character, not character controller or player character, but just character. Now, character script, it has the thing where you can have health and damage, and also the sounds. We also need an audio source, so we'll add that. Audio source. We want to change the audio source a little bit. The spatial blend should be 3D. That way we can hear it. Like if it's far away, it won't be as loud. And if it's to the left, it'll sound to the left if you have stereo speakers, that sort of thing. Spatial blend. But we want our Doppler setting to be down to 0. Doppler is what makes things sound higher pitch when they're coming toward you. So you don't want the bat to sound like a race car going by meow, because that's basically what it does. Now we need to drag in the audio source into the audio source slot of the character script. We want to pick a death sound. In our sounds that we've already got, there is a death sound, enemy death 01. Select that one. And hurt sound, there is a hit 03. So that is a good one for hit. We don't necessarily need a healing sound. If he heals, he doesn't need to make any special sound about it. Another thing we want to do is set the respawn delay. So this bat, if it attacks us and misses and hits the rock, it will hurt itself, and if it hurts itself enough, it will die. But we don't want it to come right back to alive in 3 seconds. So let's make it more like 10 seconds, I think is a good amount for testing. And maybe in your real game, you might actually make it even more. Okay, we also need to make some changes to the bat animator. So right now, if it doesn't have anything that shows if he's dead. He just has regular flapping all the time. So we need to add another state. Right click, create state, empty, and let's name it dead. We need to make a transition from flap to dead, make a transition, and then we also need a transition that goes back from dead to flap. So that's when he responds, he will need to go back to flapping. We also need a parameter. Let's make a new parameter, and it's just a bool. It's called is dead. I think it's lowercase I, capital D. The transition from flap to dead, it needs a condition, and it will be is dead is true. So when is dead becomes true, it will transition from flap to dead. And then for the transition back from dead to flap, we want the opposite. Is dead is false. So when it was dead, it'll be in the dead state, and when it becomes not dead anymore, it will go back to the flapping state. Now we also, of course, need our dead animation to actually look like something. It's going to be bat die is the animation. And another thing that I think is kind of important is to uncheck has exit time from the transition that goes from flap to dead. The one back doesn't matter so much, but we remove has exit time. That way, as soon as he dies, he transitions to dead. Otherwise, it waits for this flapping animation to like get to a conclusion at the end of its animation cycle and then transition. With this check mark unchecked, let's say it's right over here in the animation and it suddenly dies, it'll transition right then to the dead animation. And that's what we want. If you want to preview the animation, you can click on the state so you can find the motion again. Go to the project, click on the motion, and then it'll highlight it. Click on the motion here, and then you've got this section at the bottom you can open, and click the play button. So that's the animation of him dying over and over again. But in the game, he'll just do it once and then stop. In case you're curious, what makes this animation stop when it's done as opposed to the idle animation that continuously flaps in the game? The idle animation has a loop time check mark, and the die animation does not. So it means it doesn't just keep looping, it just plays the animation once. Okay, one thing I wanted to point out, that if you want your rock to be solid, it needs a collider. I think we probably put one on there already. Another thing you can do is you can just add a capsule collider. Because we're making this a tall, skinny object, the capsule collider works perfectly well. And one thing I want to show you is if you go into the prefab, I like to make the collider just slightly smaller, skinnier, I mean, than the object. So in order for an object to hit it, they have to kind of go inside the visible part. When they hit, they definitely look like they've hit. Because if the collider is bigger, it will look like they just stop before they hit. It's not as convincing that way. Okay, so we have a bat here. It wants to attack us, and we're going to go over by that rock and see if we can get him to run into the rock instead of us. Okay, here he is. Oh, he's going to hit us. Okay, let's hide behind the rock. Oh, he hit the rock. See, that's pretty nice. That's kind of satisfying. Ram and smack. So he's going to do this 10 times because that's how many times it would take to kill him. He has 100 health and does 10 damage every time. You might want to change that for the future if you want your bat to be able to get hurt more. You might increase his damage or decreases maximum health. Okay, there he is. He finally died, and he is just lying there. He'll be there for 10 seconds, and then he'll respawn. Oh, there he is. Oh, he came right after us. Now, wouldn't it be nice to be able to see how damaged he is? We can tell if he's about to finish himself off or how close we are to winning, etc. We can put a health bar on him. Okay, there's that mean old bat. Let's see if oh, here he comes. Dodge. Okay. Let's show him what's up. Hey, if we hide behind this rock, he doesn't hurt us, but he does seem to be hurting himself. Oh, there he goes. He has finished himself off. Let's get out of here before he respawns. Okay, I was going to also show you today how to add um, a health bar to our bat so we can see how close he is to finishing himself off. However, I think this video has been long enough, so we'll save that for next time. Thank you for watching LewyT Amusement Academy Part 20. Come back next time and we will learn how to do the health system. If you learned something down here today, then please give this video a like or subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And as always, share with your friends, frenemies, enemies, and even your nemesis.